Okay. Hello everyone. I just finished a day of work at university. Oh, for goodness. Alright. Hello everyone. I just finished a day of work at university. I'm now coming home, and I thought I'd talk about a slightly hot take that I've got. It's to do with Dostoyevsky. I think the brothers Karamazov particularly, and a lot of his works, are overly long. Not a lot of people talk about it, and a lot of people pretend that Dostoyevsky isn't really that long, and it's actually a lot of fun, and all that stuff. These people are often either really bored, or they're lying through their teeth or something, or they actually just don't really get that Dostoyevsky's actually a philosopher doing philosophy in a literary mode. Anyway, anyone who's literate is going to recognize that Dostoyevsky's works are overly long, even if they are, tangentially enjoyable. But the reason for that is kind of interesting, and historically, perhaps, once you understand some context, you'll realize that my take isn't as audacious and outrageous as it seems to be. It isn't just the fact that we're dealing with a Russian translation, it's also the fact that Dostoyevsky didn't write his books in one go like most authors do today. He wrote and published his books in up to 13 parts as entries in a journal in serial form. What this meant was that he had to write a certain amount of words and a certain amount of pages by a specific deadline, and the more of this he wrote, the more that he was paid, the easier it was and the quicker it was to fund his gambling addiction, which was a big lifelong struggle for poor old Fyodor. And consequently, this results in Dostoyevsky kind of fillermaxxing. And so Brothers Karamazov can actually be quite a slog, because there is just so many useless conversations, and I don't even think I'm exaggerating when I say they're useless. There are a lot of conversations that seem useless at the time that end up paying off, and there's others that really don't end up paying off in the way that they probably should, and in the way that they do in some of his shorter works like Crime and Punishment. Part of that might be that maybe Fyodor was planning to do a sequel that was never released. But I think that he was really incentivized to write filler because he was publishing serial. Yeah, maybe it's a hot take. Maybe I'm just crazy and a really slow reader. I feel like I read a lot of arcane and archaic books, and I don't know, I feel like Dostoyevsky maybe maybe he's just a slower writer or something, but it seems to me that the publishing schema really impacted his lack of efficiency as a storyteller. That's my hot take for today. You let me know what you think, and I'll be curious to hear what your guys' thoughts are in the comments. Potentially another hot take is everyone on this algorithm is talking about people's left hands, shaking hands with people and blah blah blah. They latch on to all the most superficial details in Dostoyevsky's stuff, and none of the interesting stuff, none of the actual philosophy or the theology gets talked about at all. The entire central point that Dostoyevsky himself kind of thought was his thesis was the whole problem of evil and the answer to the problem of evil, and that's kind of how the book is supposed to end. You're supposed to get the answer as you progress towards the 900-page ending of the book. But there you go. Perhaps if there's demand for it, I will talk about Dostoyevsky's philosophy and maybe even try to reconstruct some of his arguments. They're interesting because they're kind of existential in form. When I say that, I mean they're not propositional. They rely, that is, the Christian answers Dostoyevsky gives rely on the lived ethos of the Christian, namely taking on responsibility for everything and everyone as Christ did. That is Dostoyevsky's reading of the Jesus story. So if that's something you'd like to hear more about, you comment and you let me know. I don't think anyone's talking about it, but I could be wrong. Maybe there's a great philosophy grad that has done some work on this that's better than me. That certainly wouldn't be news. There are a lot of people who are a lot smarter and a lot better at reading and analyzing Russian texts than I am. So yeah, but I could be wrong. So let me know, and perhaps you'll see a video on it in the future. Alright, you take care, guys. God bless you, and Godspeed.